Hey now, welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. It is an off week, yet we've somehow still packed it with amazing stuff.
Packed, just like my luggage, ready to go on vacation.
Geez. Oh my God. You're going to do this the whole episode?
No, I was going to hold off until the end, and then here I am breaking it out right at the beginning, but... Yes, so no race this weekend, but we have a guest on the show. We have Molly from the Tech Heads podcast, which apparently I may have forgotten she was part of when we had Dr. Obbs on. So we put it out on Twitter. We said, look, we can do an apology episode. We'd love to have you on for me to say sorry. I was going to say for us to say sorry, but Brian's completely innocent in all of this. And she said yes, so she came on. We've had a great chat with her, so we're going to hear that later.
She's amazing.
She's so much fun.
Yeah.
We've got listener Darron that takes on 100 Seconds of DRS. We've got News and Social. And then we've got looking forward to next week when I'm not really sure what we're doing, but by that point I'll have probably drunk my own body weight in alcohol on the beach in Mexico. So I won't care.
So thank you for telling us all that you'll be on vacation. If anyone in Connecticut wants to rob Rob's house, no one there. All right, where do you want to start with news of the week?
News of the week. Oh, man. If lots of people are all bristling about Abu Dhabi and whether it should have been 8 world championships or not, and people are saying, let it go. It's too long ago. You've got to let it go. Well, people might want to have a word with Massa because Felipe Massa, and I get it, he was denied the 2008 world championship. And for people that don't remember or weren't around to see it and haven't looked into it, Massa always felt that he lost out on a whole bunch of points in the race that became the epicenter of Crashgate when Nelson Piquet Jr. was instructed to crash on purpose to help Fernando Alonso's race. That incident it did work for Fernando. It ruined Massa's race. He finished 13 outside the points, and obviously he went on to lose the title that year to Lewis on the last corner of Brazil. Now, it's been lying for a while, maybe enough dust had settled, and then good old Bernie Ecclestone.
15 years.
Yeah, 15 years of dust. And then Bernie Ecclestone comes along with a new comment now and says they were aware of Crashgate during the 2008 season, and along with FIA president at the time, Max Mosley, they decided to keep it under wraps to avoid a damaging scandal. And his quote was, "We had enough information at the time to investigate the matter. According to the statutes, we should have cancelled that race in Singapore under these conditions." Well, if that race had been cancelled and those points didn't count in that race, Massa would be champion. So apparently he is looking into his legal options. Oh, man. I mean, Crashgate was a bad thing. It just... enough time feels like it's gone now. I don't know what you do. I mean, even if they overturned it, is Massa going to get a little podium, get given the WDC, and Lewis is going to be upset? I mean, it happened. It's gone. What do you think on these types of things, Brian?
Reporting live over things I don't care about. Don't care. I saw your note in there, and what did I write? Don't care, didn't read. Nothing's going to change. We're wasting air. Moving on.
Okay.
Former sponsor Rocket of the Williams team has sued Williams for $149 million in a Florida court, claiming compensation for damage to its reputation. I don't know what Rocket does. Do you know what Rocket does, Rob?
No, don't care.
Don't either. It is. And so just a little story on why they claimed that Williams promised them a competitive car in 2019. And knowing that it did not have sufficient funds to back up that claim. Has a race team ever gone into a conversation with advertisers going, yeah, we're going to be crap?
Yeah.
They're suing
Can you put your logo on our car? You're going to get lots of airtime as we're trundling around the back and crashing into things.
Exactly. When Latifi crashes and ruins Abu Dhabi for everyone, then you're going to get your money's worth. Just kidding. Sorry, Nikki. Anyway, the point is they say they fulfilled their commitment in 2019. COVID delayed 2020 start. There was a lot of arguments about paying, not paying during the COVID break. And then they kind of canceled as Williams was looking for owners. Again, another story I really don't care about. But now we're getting into the good stuff.
Yeah, now we've got that kind of legal mumbo-jumbo out the way. Let's really bring it into the sweet spot of the dirty side, which is talking about stupid stuff.
Yes.
I'll let you introduce this first one.
Okay. So, first of all, there's a thought about a fight in Las Vegas. And I think Zach Brown put this out there first, if I have this right. Tell me if I'm wrong.
I think he did, yeah.
He said he wanted to fight Toto. And the two of them wanted to fight in Vegas. Vegas, baby. Vegas.
Vegas, baby. Vegas!
And they wanted to do this boxing match. A boxing match. Toto and Zach Brown. Now, I put it out on Twitter that I'm assuming Las Vegas would have Toto as about a 2,000% favorite here. I mean, what are the chances of Zach winning this fight, Rob?
I mean, come on. This is Rocky IV all over again. So Toto's going to have all of the equipment and the technology and training like a robot, and Zach's going to be like pushing tires up a hill and carrying logs. And don't count Zach out here. I reckon he could take it.
So not right.
There's no chance. I hope they do it. I hope it's for charity. I hope it's for fun.
Wolf's got a glass chin. One hit, he's going down. I'm telling you,
not a chance. I got the Austrian to win big time, bigly. Oh boy! And you hit the next one because you loved this one a year ago.
I did love this one. I mean, just really kind of doubling down on the marina in Miami. So we all know about last year, the fake marina, the fake water, but I actually quite it. Why not? It was pretty cool. But this year now they've made some room to the side of that marina to put real water in the shape of two little swimming pools, which are going to have sunset cabanas in front of them.
I mean, this sounds great.
You can have private. Basically, if you look at the picture we shared on our Instagram, there's like two pools and about what looks like about 6 or 8 of these cabanas, just like with loads of real estate. So you're not going to be crowded out. You're going to be lying on there. You're going to get served with proper waiter service with a chef there that serves the area while you watch cars go by. I mean, that's just awesome, isn't it? And apparently it's going to be really cheap as well.
I'm assuming it'll be very affordable. By the way, it's next to the marina, right next to the boats in the marina. So first of all, you said private. I mean, you'll have your own lounge chair, assuming, but then you'll be on TV the whole time in your swimsuit. I can't lose weight fast enough for this.
I didn't literally mean as in private as no one can see you. I mean, you're not going to have to put up with 1,000 people who squashed against you.
I'm going to have Martin Brundle, talking about my love handles. And so, we don't need that. Second of all, they call the marina the water feature. No, that's not water. It's faux water at best. It's not a water feature. When people have like a fountain in front of their house, that's a water feature. When you have like a weirdo thing in your bathroom where the water comes out that's a water feature. When it's painted paint, it's not a water feature.
Painted paint.
Water.
Who called it a water feature then?
The Miami GP.
Oh, did they? Because when they released this, they said water will arrive in Miami now. So they're kind of acknowledging that it's not.
If you click through 7 or 8 layers, they talk about the marina having a water feature.
It is. It's the 2 pools next to it.
Also coming out this week, Charles Leclerc. Oh, I did not like this. A video of when he had his watch stolen last year, a year ago. I think it was April even, if I remember right. And they show him chasing the robbers down in his Ferrari. I did not like this. What is he doing? He just let it go, man. And it's his Richard Mille, or as us down from the south call it at the flea market, a dick mile. Why is he chasing them down? Just let it go. Who does he think he is? Is this the Fast and the Ferrarius? Like, don't, just let it go. You have insurance, you have sponsors, you have money. Man, just, anyway.
I mean, that feels like a pure adrenaline rush chase down, that if they'd actually stopped and then he got out, I think he might have then Homer Simpsoned his way back into the bushes and just kind of got out of there. It's like...
He's not a particularly large guy either. Anyway,
a couple of small little pieces now to kind of wrap up. I like it when you see a headline and then you read the article and you're thinking, not really sure they were saying that. So there's this whole thing. Franz Tost is saying that Yuki is in line to take Checo's seat at Red Bull. Because his contract's up at the end of the year. Might Red Bull go earlier than that? I was like, okay, let's have a little click of this bad boy. Fell for it. Nothing burger. Just a set of quotes from Franz Tost saying that Yuka's having a great year. He's where they want him to be. And, Checo's contract does only go to the end of the year. So there is an opportunity should he carry on the same glide path in 24 and 25. So basically saying Yuka's doing a good job in the sister team. So he might have a shot at a Red Bull seat in the future.
He's still going to get outpointed by Nick this season. I'm saying it. I'll still stick by my guns on this one.
Yeah, I know you said it. Now, we I think we had a guy called Valtteri Bottas on the show at some point, and and he drives for Alfa Romeo, and they've been struggling a bit recently. But apparently, I didn't notice this in Australia, but they brought a new nose and front wing, not with the idea of the immediate gains, but they've radically redesigned the front of the car to give themselves better balance of that car going forward. So that is a kind of a statement that I didn't read into this when they made this statement. But you kind of feel like they brought, did they bring the nose and the wing and put it on, and then it wasn't any better, and they went, oh yeah, it wasn't supposed to be better now. This is for better balance in the future. And now they've gone back to the factory and gone, oh, the new nose didn't work.
Well, I mean, I remember they said they redesigned the rear of the car during the off-season completely, and the only thing I noticed at Australia was it said kick instead of steak because of the gambling situation in Australia. That's the only thing I noticed different, but I hope they get it worked out because Valtteri's had bad luck this season.
I know. Talking of sponsors, this is just me just being stupid, really, but energy drink. I don't think they're a rival of Red Bull yet because I'd never heard of them, but energy drink
we
Celsius.
have some in our fridge.
You have some Celsius, do you?
My daughter. Yeah, I am a sponsor of.
Well, Celsius is going to feature on the Ferrari for all 3 US
sponsored
races.
By Saperstein.
So just for the US, they're going to bring Celsius to the US, which led me to quote on Vincenzo's post when he put this forward, shouldn't they be rebranding it Fahrenheit when they bring it to the US?
Because look at you with the dad jokes.
Yes. No one's going to know what Celsius is.
Except for people who are young and found it on TikTok. It's really good, too. I've never actually tried it, but if you leave it in the fridge long enough, it'll actually eat its own way through the can. It's that toxic.
It's like, oh, no, now I've got flashbacks of probably a film that you've never seen because you've never seen anything that's good, but Superman 3. Yeah, Superman 3.
Seen it.
Yes, but the toxic chemical there. That used to give me nightmares, the robot woman that comes out of the supercomputer.
Well, first of all, the real toxic chemical is when Kit gets dumped into the vat of the acid.
Oh, no, don't, because now I can hear his voice when he's shouting for Michael and it gets slower. And no,
okay.
Don't.
So anyway, moving on. We both like Knight Rider. Brian's Video Vault. And you know what? We're going to have guest lecturer Rob talk about the first one. Mr. Professor, what would you like to talk about?
Lollipop Man's back.
Yes.
Meant to mention it last week because he'd been out. He didn't cover anything for the first 2 races, and then he dropped one last week, which was the cool-down room. And if you haven't seen the cool-down room, I would recommend you go and watch that one before you watch the Australia GP review, because in the cool-down room, George does a whole kind of explanation about why Southern Hemisphere racing is completely different and rules down under are completely different and downforce becomes upforce and all those kind of different things that if you don't hear that, you might not get all of the George references in the Aussie GP one. But he's back with a bang, back to his usual genius, and I won't spoil it, but Max in his rocket boots was a moment of a personal highlight on that video.
For sure. Love Lollipop. I do have 4 quick ones to hit. One I found on Instagram on McLaren right before the Aussie GP. Now, I didn't see it till like the race, but I forgot to cover it because it was 4 in the morning. So they did, in partnership with Hilton, I'm back with the hotel chains, they transformed the McLaren Technical Center in Woking into a hotel, sort of a sleepover, they called it. And some lucky person won, and they had dinner there, and they had a little hotel room in the MTC. They watched the race there in the morning, their morning, and it was very confusing for me as I watched this because it's McLaren, a British company, with Hilton, an American-based, I mean, although everywhere in the world, but an American hotel chain, with Italian music for the Aussie GP. And I could not quite figure out what food they were serving in this situation. But anyway, it was a really cool thing on Insta if you check it out. Then Connor Moore has been busy. He's had a lot of good content the last couple of weeks with F1 and some for the Masters, which we're recording this a couple of days early because Rob went on vacation. So they had this whole deal, Connor Moore did, the F1 Australia GP reactions impressions on the Connor Moore channel, 2 minutes. It is good. You check it out if you have not seen it. Rob, did you see this one yet?
Yes, I love him. And he's definitely leaning into, because I really knew him for his English football impressions, but he's really kind of leaning into all sports right now. A sport event is on, he's there doing the impressions, and why not? He's very good at impressions. So
he is.
Yeah, I love that one.
We have on the Red Bull channel 4 minutes Daniel's spicy quiz featuring Max and Checo Aussie edition. It also launched race day, actually on Sunday, so technically it's in the correct window, even though it was from the week of the race last week. Max seems to want to have inside jokes with Daniel throughout the whole thing, but this was really good. Like, I know Daniel's getting a lot of money from McLaren, and I know he's hanging around Red Bull, so he's got his face in the paddock, and he's got a shot at a seat next year. This was great. Like, kudos to Red Bull for putting this on. Checo, Max, Daniel, just kind of chatting about stuff. Loved it. If you at all like Red Bull or any of those drivers, you should check it out. And the last one, once again, we will have a guest conversation on this. Building the perfect Aussie burger is a tall order. On the F1 channel, it's 8 minutes. It's with the Alpine drivers, and they're making hamburgers. But we're going to hold that because Molly and I are going to talk about that during the conversation.
Whew. And by extreme series of fortunate events, it's time we talk to Molly now and hear about how that conversation went. It's like you manufactured that segue, Brian. That was next level stuff, that was. Anyway, yes, as I said at the beginning, Molly, third co-host of the Tech Heads podcast. We caught up with her. We had an amazing time. She was such good fun. I could have carried on talking to her for another hour. So let's listen in how we got on chatting with Molly. Okay, this week on the Dirty Side, we have another guest, and a guest who I owe a large apology to. The other week we had Dr. Robs on, and as my excitement of introducing him, I introduced him as one half of the Tech Heads podcast. Now, the problem with that statement is the Tech Heads podcast has 3 hosts, and I welcome and apologise to the third, and some say best host of the Tech Heads, Molly. Welcome to the Dirty Side of the Track.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Apology accepted. I'm obviously laughing about it.
Don't let him off that easy, Molly. Come on now.
No.
Thank
I'm
you
done.
for joining
Bye.
us. Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Having me. I'm excited to come on and chat with y'all.
Oh, we're absolutely thrilled to have you on as well. So that now that we've got the apology out the way, I can relax and we can just we just chat. And I would say we never need to mention it again.
Oh no, it's gonna come back to bite you. The randomest time, I'm gonna be like, remember that time you forgot I was a co-host of the Tech Heads? I'm just gonna use it now, and just you never are going to know when I'm going to pull it out.
Please, all the time on Twitter, I beg.
You got it.
Come on, we've got a chat to get on with. So, actually, talking to the Tech Heads, and this is not maybe your full origin story, but how did that come about? How did did you land the third role there at the Tech Heads guys?
So with the Tech Heads guys, they had me on for their second episode. I am a powertrain kind of focused person in my knowledge and day job, and they were doing an episode focused on the 2026 power unit regulations, and seeing my content that I make on TikTok, where a lot of people might know me as a bunch of red flags, where I break down and explain the tech behind F1 cars and race cars to try and make it easy to understand. And they said, hey, let's get Molly on. She knows powertrains. And so I came on. We had kind of talked about it in the meantime, that they were like maybe considering a third host. And then from there, just kind of, hey, we'd love to have you as third host, and the rest is history.
Cool. And how did the actual, if we really wind the clock back, and we also always like to talk to guests about their F1 origin story. When did you discover F1? Have you always been into motorsport with your powertrain background? I'm guessing you have. Was it F1 first, another motorsport? How did kind of it all start for Molly?
And as an American, it's very important Rob gets this out of the way. As an American in the Midwest, I am especially enthralled to hear this story as opposed to hearing Rob's.
Y'all will probably laugh about this. So I never was really into racing growing up. My family, it was around. My aunt is the biggest Jimmy Johnson fan I think I've ever met, but I was never really like personally into it. I was always growing up around working on cars with my dad though, but I didn't find racing until I was in engineering school. And I found it because I saw a picture of Dale Earnhardt Jr., if any of y'all are NASCAR fans.
Yes.
And I was like, I need to know who that person is. And so I asked some friends, and they're like, oh, you have good taste. That's like NASCAR royalty. You should watch the race with us this weekend. The race that I watched was the 2014 Daytona 500, which he wins. And I'm hooked instantly. Couldn't have cared less about racing at that point. Wasn't into cars, but racing was never really on my radar. I watched the race. I'm hooked. I'm like, this is the greatest thing that I have ever experienced. I need to know everything. So I stayed for the tech and the experience of understanding all of it. It was super fascinating to me, and it actually helped me learn fluid dynamics when I was in college because I was struggling in that class and actually used racing to help teach myself. But I didn't find F1 until 2016, really. It was in my orbit. I knew about it as I dove into the world of racing. Like, I remember Seb winning the 2014 championship. Like, that's kind of like, I always say it's my first WDC. But I really don't have a true memory until 2016, until Daniel Ricciardo's ill-fated pit stop at Monaco.
Yes.
I was watching that race on my phone in the back of a car on a road trip because I was like, I always got to watch Monaco, but it didn't really mean much to me once I'd found racing. Watched that race, and I was just, something clicked with me that was like, I should watch this sport more. And so I was kind of hooked from then on, and it's kind of always been there and around. I, like, in college wasn't gonna get up early to watch races, obviously, but now that it's like I'm out of a career, it's easier to get up, and I get up at the crack of dawn now. I like get up and watch it. I'm totally all in on it, but I'm also the biggest NASCAR, sports car, and IndyCar propagandist you'll probably ever meet, because those are what I really started in, and then I kind of found F1 later.
So NASCAR, great start. We're recording
Yes.
this a couple of days before Sunday. Sundays will push us out. NASCAR's in the dirt on Sunday, which I cannot wait for.
NASCAR's in the dirt in 2 weeks, actually. It is Easter weekend, so they don't race this weekend.
Oh, I got the date wrong?
Yes.
Well, at least I didn't.
Midwest boy knows everything about.
I have a picture of it on my phone. Like, I saw it coming, and anyhow, in a couple of weeks. But the other big thing in the Midwest is Chicago, and this, I have the dates right, July 1st and 2nd, because I'm debating trying to get there to see it, being a Chicago guy. Tickets are a little more money than I was bargaining for as I was looking at them. Have you been to a NASCAR event in the recent past, or no?
I have. I go to a new NASCAR track every year with my dad. I didn't want to go to a race by myself one year and had 2 tickets and convinced my dad, who could care less about racing, to go. He now every year is, so what track are we going to? What race are we going to every year now?
Great.
So I did Bristol night last year for the playoffs, which they're elimination style playoff. I think this year is going to probably be Martinsville and Chicago. I'm also trying to make Chicago work.
Yeah.
Because I think that that's going to be one to really check out. And then I always go to MIS because I'm Detroit based, which is Michigan International Speedway, as my local race. So I usually hit every major series that comes to the US or is in the US every year. So I'm constantly booking trips that align with a race or taking trips purposely to go to races. So I'm going on my 5th race next weekend in this year so far. So it should be fun.
That's super cool. And thank you for correcting me. Now I have my Sunday night free.
Yeah, there you go.
What about, you say every series. Have you managed to get along to an F1 race over here?
I have. I went to COTA last year. That was my first in-person F1 Grand Prix, which was super cool.
Oh, so jealous. So jealous. Me and Brian are counting down the days. Neither of us have been to a race before.
I was going to ask.
We are having our debut, Dirty Side on Tour, going up to Canada in June. So,
ooh, oh my gosh, that'll be so fun. That's like the other one I was always contemplating going was, do I do COTA? Do I do Toronto? Or not Toronto, Montreal? Gosh, now I'm getting places wrong. It's fine.
It's bizarre.
I was always debating that one too.
For me, it's like, and probably, I think for Brian as well, our closest Grand Prix is not even in the US, it's in Canada.
Yeah.
Did
you do any before you had come over to the States?
No, it was one of those things where, like, a big fan, I'd always wanted to go along to Silverstone, but for whatever reason, I'd never made it happen. And kind of regret that now. Wish I'd kind of tried a little bit harder to get along, but no, this is going to be fun. Really looking forward to it. So can't wait to get up there. Downside is I have to go with Brian, but other than that, it's going to be great.
The downside.
Oh, you poor thing.
I know. I don't think I'm going to survive 3 days with Rob. So Molly, as you look, especially at F1 and the recent years you've been an F1 fan, what in that time or even before, as you look retrospectively at F1, what's been some of your favorite tech innovations? Like, look at it and having some of your technical background. It doesn't have to be powertrain per se, but like, what do you look back and say, these are some cool innovations that have come along from a technical perspective?
I mean, I'm definitely a DOS purist, and I'm still very upset that was outlawed. My other personal favorite was party modes, though, because I love finding those cheeky little ways to gain an advantage in a car, or any sort of gray area exploitation that you can find in a car to make it work for you. And unfortunately, the FIA stands for fun isn't allowed. So they wind up outlawing some of these really fun things. But those are like, when you say like favorite tech things, those are like the first two. I'm always like, DOS, like slams the table, and then party modes immediately after.
Do you think there's a possibility in today's 2023 F1 standings that Red Bull is doing a reverse party mode and sandbagging so they don't pull away so far that the FIA has to regulate against them? Because that's like the new rule, right? Is that they're actually pulling back a little bit.
See, knowing that Mercedes did that in 2014 with the hybrid era, where they were purposely turning their engine down. I'm going to say that with air quotes, because you don't necessarily have to purposely limit your modes and maps to turn down. There's things you can do, such as reference lap times, where you just have the driver run a slower lap, or you have them lift and coast earlier. You can give them, I don't know if a lot of people know this, there's a lift and coast tone in the driver's headset.
Did not know that.
Depending on if they do use that. So it'll tell them when to lift or what to do. There's also like a shift beep, DRS beep. They can do an audio command that will equate to a reference lap time. So they don't just throttle the engine effectively with a mode. They can kind of modulate it that way and turn things down that way. And I think you were kind of hearing that at the end of Jeddah, where they told Max to run this lap time that was slower than what he was running. And I could have that backwards. It was I think it might have actually been Checo they told to run a slower lap time. But they were trying to tell them to both run the same lap time, because you don't need to lap the whole field at that point. You know, it's like you're already out like 17 seconds in front of people. Like you can back off a little bit because nobody's even a threat. And so I wonder, just like, I'm a tinfoil hat person sometimes. I do wonder if they're doing like what Mercedes did in 2014, where when we first went into turbo hybrid era, the car was so good and so fast, they were scared that the FIA was going to ban whatever it was or tell them they had to stop. And they did a map and a mode and certain reference laps to curb that so that they didn't get noticed. And so I'm kind of wondering if maybe they've just found some really good efficiency in the car, because I don't think that that's the fastest power unit on the grid. There's data out there that suggests that the Honda still isn't the strongest one out of the four. If you look at AlphaTauri versus Red Bull in some of their speed traps, some of their DRS data, they're kind of at the bottom of the rung. And so I don't know if that's the consistently quickest power unit they need to kind of turn down in terms of speed, because having the fastest car doesn't always mean you have the most power in your engine. It's a balance of things. So I wonder if they are doing some things, because we're hearing them call some slower laps, but that could be for a multitude of reasons, with tire drag, just preserving your equipment too at the end of a race. We talked about it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that I was just agreeing with you, because if we take the tinfoil hat off for a minute, then I'm kind of thinking, when you're winning so easily and there's no one really chasing you from behind, then in an era where you get penalized so badly for changing engine parts, like Ferrari, oh my gosh, my Ferrari, and they're already changing stuff.
One race.
They almost so bad.
They're going to set a new record next year where they're going to change parts in like -1 race, like as in there'll be no races and they'll have changed all their parts. But anyway, you know, why put the Red Bull through the extra stress if you don't need that performance? Just like you say, lift and coast, take all the stress off the engine. I don't know that they could do much to hide at the moment. That car feels like it's so much in a different class. It would be like, I don't know what they're going to do. Like the FIA come along and the Red Bull guys go, no, this is really slow.
Yeah.
Well, we are in the middle. Rob and I are in the middle of a debate, which now I'm regretting the side I've taken possibly. And I like your thoughts. So, you know, as you said, you mentioned some of the new regs conversation, 2026. We have 2 3/4 years of racing until that we get to this part. Rob is of the mindset, no one, from a constructor's perspective, no one will catch Red Bull. No one will even make it really interesting from the constructors. I think somebody will get their act together and will, you know, like Aston did this year, but, you know, multiply by a couple years worth of it and get close, at least cause a little bit of a challenge for Red Bull by the end of these regs. Where do you stand, Molly? Are you kind of like Red Bull all the way to 26 and then let's start over, or someone else may have a shot?
I'm in the same boat as you. I think that we're still on a learning curve of the new regulation. This is kind of me stepping back and kind of like a very pragmatic approach, but I think it's kind of rooted in how I approach engineering. But I do think we're still on a learning curve, and some of these teams don't know what they don't know, which is like my favorite thing to say about these cars. They're still learning, they're still correlating, they're still trying to understand, and the regs are still changing season to season. So there were changes going into this season with the floor, with the height change, and some of the other changes that they maybe still need to understand with their cars. And I think we're seeing teams take like a development year or take a learning year, and then they come back with a beast of a car like Aston. And so I think that we're seeing design convergences as well in the teams to what they're noticing that's working. And so I think we could see some teams really get their act together as they work strategically and smartly under the cost cap too, like managing modeling, managing parts, how they approach cars with like approach what their car is doing on track versus where they want to be. I think we could still see some people come in and shake up the order, and I think we still could see some order shakeups. I'm not saying this is like a Haas Constructors Championship kind of situation at all. I just think that we could still see some surprises up in the order, and some teams that maybe think that they have improved and maybe not improved as much as they thought they had in comparison to their competition in the order, where they're like, oh, we're targeting 5th or 6th. We're really 7th or 8th or 8th or 9th because some other teams really got their act together.
Yeah, I mean, my negative Nelly is coming from the fact that it just feels very much like Ferrari at the beginning of the 2000s and then Mercedes when they went on a bit of a dominating run, because I agree with everything you've just said. I think all the other teams are learning. My big problem is I don't think Red Bull have stopped learning yet. So a lot of these kind of, like Brian's counter argument, which, you know, I could well be wrong. Obviously, I could be wrong. And when we did the Twitter poll, it was almost split, like we had over 200 votes and it was kind of split 50-50 as to which side of the argument they fell on. Is that while the others might make leaps like Aston this year, I don't think Newey and the gang are done in ringing out, because for everyone else to gain, you almost have to look at Red Bull need to plateau. And my fear is we don't see that.
Yeah, that's my fear with actually a lot of these teams, where we see that they come out of the gate really strong. And I like don't want to name teams, but I think Aston and Haas are two good examples where they come out of the gate kind of strong. They seem like they have a really good development pipeline. And then 5-6 races in, maybe 8, they taper off and just plateau. And that development pipeline just flattens right out. And that momentum that it seems like they had to kind of have that upswing just fizzles right out. And then you have other teams in contrast that start off really slow and you're like, oh, this is going to be a terrible year. And then 5-6 races in are like on an up curve. And so it's hard to say. I actually don't think they're done either. I think they have probably a pretty robust development pipeline as they do, because if you look at the car last year, it got better. Yeah. It started out, it was okay. It had some weaknesses. It was kind of harsh on its tires at first, but they brought a development pipeline that, I mean, that thing was a monster by the end of the season. So I think it's one where maybe someone can get up there. I don't think they'll get close, at least right now, until they figure out a good way to kind of create a balanced car like Red Bull has. Like, they just have insane aero efficiency. It's very well balanced. I think until a team finds that balance, and I don't know if you can do that without a Newey. I think we're seeing it at Aston Martin with Dan Fallows, his former boss, I think it was. But I think that we're seeing that there. But without someone like that, I don't know if it's as quick of a fix or as quick of a jump. But I think we can see some teams try.
Well, Australia, we saw George go out with his engine fire. And then on the 3rd or 4th or 5th red flag, I can't remember which one it was, we saw him sitting in the pit lane staring at the Red Bull car. And then we saw Toto walking around it, just staring at it as they sat there in the pits. And Toto actually sketched it all in his mind. And then
I have it printed out.
So he is set. I'm thinking it's Mercedes within the next year. He walked around, scanned it with his laser eye, and we're set. Like, so Mercedes is ready, Rob.
Well, that's a good segue.
And Molly agrees it'll happen. So
yeah. And then this is a nice little segue to bring Molly as a view on this, is that we've got this little break. We're going to come back in what feels like about 6 years' time to pick the season back up again.
Yes. It's not what IndyCar's doing, at least.
Who are you got your eye on for So for me, Red Bull constructor this year, locked and loaded. But the who finishes second is absolutely fascinating to me because you've got, like you said, Aston come in and kind of like disrupted the party. Fernando's got his swagger back and is just sort of absolutely loving it. You've got Ferrari have done a Ferrari, and then Mercedes are kind of teasing us that, like at the end of last season, it was like, oh, they got their stuff back together again, and maybe Lewis can win a race this year. But then they didn't start great. But then Australia, they look good again. So you've got this, for me, this three-way battle, I think, for second. Would you agree? And who do you think is going to bring the most upgrades in the next few races?
I absolutely agree with that. I think the battle for second is really up in the air. As for who's going to bring the most upgrades, that I struggle with. Just, I think we know that Mercedes is bringing some sort of wholesale philosophy change. And so I kind of want to reserve my judgment until at least Imola, I think it is, when we see that, of what that could do, because it sounds like it's going to be pretty big. I think they are still significantly learning about this half pod concept, and they're realizing that it's not the right approach. I mean, kudos to them for trying. I mean, it's smart. It's actually pretty creative. That whole approach and the risk they took with that, I give them major props for. And it seems like they're learning about the car, but they're bringing a pretty big wholesale change. So depending on what that does for them, they could be right back up there. It could be Mercedes and Red Bull ride again, and are battling together. I also think, though, I think Lewis is still really uncomfortable in that car. And so it'll be interesting to see if he can get a better handle on. I think he said that too, whereas like George feels much more comfortable. But what scares me with them is it's very rare that we see a power unit failure in a Mercedes. They are known for their reliability. So if that's some sort of root of a problem, and that rears its head like poor Ferrari's power unit issues, I would be a little concerned. But if this Imola concept shows up and it's fast, I could see it being right there in second place and giving Aston a run for their money. Aston's a dark horse for me. They really are. I think they have a great shot at P2. It's kind of like a three-way thing for me. Everybody has their pros and cons, because you've got Dan Fallows at the helm now, and they've made all of these really strategic tech hirings, and they're showing that they can build a car that's competitive finally, that's not in the midfield. It's going to be interesting to see if they can keep that momentum. And that was a team I was talking about where they've struggled to maintain a development pipeline and their momentum that they start a season with. If they can maintain that, the car stays fast, they don't have any problems, they don't regress with their upgrades, I think that they'll be hard to beat. And just, it pains me to say, but Ferrari is their own worst enemy. And I think they're going to wind up P3. That car is a little bit of a hot mess, in my opinion. It's not as a hot mess as others, but it's really harsh on its tires. It seems draggy. They seem to have a good power unit, but when it survives a race, they have a good power unit. And they seem to really be struggling with tire management, which I think is very key in this era of new compounds and has been key for a long time. But I think if they can figure out their woes, which I don't think are that easy, and them being their own worst enemy, making it 8,000 times more difficult, I think that they're a solid P3 or P4, honestly.
Rob, yeah, I have to agree with Molly, and I guess I'd ask you as the Ferrari fan, how does that make you feel?
Question?
Copy, we are checking.
Oh, last year
that's my new favorite one. We'll be back to you. Checking.
Yeah, last year was the shot, Brian. We all know that, and they managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. And then this year just seemed to have just kind of gone, well, we didn't win it last year, so let's just not do anything, and it'll probably just magically come right. Because I don't know, they just seem to have stood still while everyone else, like Aston, have kind of moved past them. And on the Aston thing, do you know what? Someone that I have to eat humble pie on, because I had him completely in the kind of Mazepin category, was old Stroll, that he's only an F1 driver because his dad owns the team. But I tell you what, with a decent car underneath him now, it's not like Fernando is putting it on the podium every race and he's back in 20th. He is showing he's a good driver. He is, the combo of those two is what's going to put them really well up in the constructors, I think. So I have to admit, he's looking like a driver.
Yeah, that's something I've said to a lot of people. They're like, where did Lance come from? And I've kind of told them, go look at his junior results. He drove for Prema in Formula 2, which is like the team you drive for if you are going to F1. And like he had good results with them. He had good results in his other categories. He's just, unfortunately, aside from being billionaire's son and getting a seat, he's just unfortunately had not that great of equipment to be able to show what he can really do in a car. And now that he has the equipment under him, he's showing that, hey, I actually am a capable driver. It's flashes of the Lance of junior years that I recall. So I'm excited to see him be up there and fighting as like someone who has been an advocate to be like, hey, it's like he's actually a good driver. Don't just call him a pay driver, you know?
Well, I guess we'll see. I mean, it would help if he didn't hit Fernando in the first race and almost hit him in the third race, but that's a different story.
It's fine.
It's the way that they pep each other up, you know. It's a little love tap, and then it gets them both the adrenaline flowing, and off they go. I mean,
I'm not sure
other
Fernando
than the one
Alonso
DNF
would agree.
Other than the one DNF for Lance, I mean, I think he's been 5th and 6th, and Fernando's been 3rd in every race. I mean, they are, they are properly bringing it. So,
yes, they are.
I mean, we'll wait until the end of the season, like you say, Brian. But I think I wrote him off last year or the year before as just being just a paid driver, and I think this year he's showing that he's not.
Molly, when you look at the teams and drivers who are maybe best of the rest, so beyond the top 4 teams, who's kind of caught your eye so far this season? I mean, there's been a good story either up or down for a lot of the teams and drivers. I'd be curious who you kind of watch during a race and say that's fascinating. Either the car, the team, driver, whatever it may be.
I watch Alpine pretty much during a race, and they're a team that I think we're on the cusp of something the last couple years, especially with not only the new regulations, but the year previous where they did enact caps and some sliding scale aero. I think they were really on the cusp of something, and the improvements that they've made to their car and the development pipeline they're touting have really caught my eye for this season. I try to keep my driver affiliations like out of social media, but I am a Pierre fan. So man. I am a Pierre fan. So I usually will pay attention to whoever he's driving for, but Alpine as a whole has been catching my eye for a couple of years. I've been really into what they're doing in both racing categories that they race in, as well as their EV road car side of things. They're really doing some cool stuff on both sides. So they're a team that I'm watching. They're a team that starts out slow and typically picks up pace as the season goes on, but they're a team that has me a little bit worried that maybe they thought they improved more than they did in the grand scheme of things against other teams where they were thinking, we're going to challenge like Mercedes and Ferrari. I mean, they were up there running with the big guys in Australia before disaster struck. But
struck each other, yes.
Yeah. So they're showing that maybe they do have some pace, but they really kind of shot themselves in the foot without any soft tire running and testing. They've had just really weird testing programs that I've noticed where they were still doing like really extreme setup work. They are still trying to get a handle on tire work, I think, too. So I think that they could be a best of the rest contender. As for the other teams, they're so enigmatic to me because it's like AlphaTauri, I've written them off. I'm so sorry, but they have it's another crap car in my opinion. It doesn't want to turn. Yep. It's really lossy. It's like a good thing Pierre moved on and another terrible car. So we'll see what their development pipeline looks like. They're still using like steering racks from 2019 and other stuff from Red Bull from like 4 years ago. So that's going to be an interesting one. McLaren, if they can figure their problems out, could be up there. They are still really struggling with the ratio of downforce to drag. So they have high drag, low downforce production. So really lossy and inefficient. And if they can get a handle on that and kind of balance their car a little bit better and bring an upgrade package that maybe while the car still could be draggy, improves that ratio so it's not as diverged.
They've been a real yo-yo team, haven't they? They've kind of been all over the map. Like say, AlphaTauri have just sucked. The ones we've already talked about have been at the top, and McLaren have just kind of like a terrible first race. And then was it the first race when Lando then suddenly started popping in after he'd been for 1 million pit stops and was running 3 hours behind everyone else? Then suddenly started popping
just
in like
hung on the back
laps.
of everybody. Yeah,
all of a sudden, like
where did
I'm
that
like,
pace?
I'm like, how is he purple with a leaking pneumatic valve train? Like, what is happening?
Such a strange team to read this year, McLaren. It's bizarre.
They are. I think they're one of the enigmatic teams to me. Williams is super enigmatic as well. They show signs of being like really strong and having improved on their car that was really only fast in a straight line last year. And then they have races where they kind of suck. Yeah. And so they're another yo-yo team. I really think the midfield and backfield is really hard to call. That's where it's like, I think that like McLaren and Alpine could be the top of that grouping, But once you get down through there, I mean, maybe Williams, maybe Alpha, but they seem to still be having reliability issues and issues with their car again. Like Valtteri's quali getting cut short, and they were just like, sorry, dude. And it didn't seem like they knew what had happened. So I'm intrigued. We see speed out of Haas sometimes. It's really hard to say once we get beyond those kind of two groups who's really going to be the true running order aside from AlphaTauri at the bottom.
So I was just about to say this. So I actually let me be kind to AlphaTauri for a second and bring them into this. I actually think that for the first time in a while, we've almost got to two tiers of running. We've got the top four teams. If we pretend Red Bull are part of the top four and not in a league of their own, we've got the top teams that are going to challenge for podiums and race wins. And then instead of having like then a midfield and then the back markers, because it always used to be Haas and Williams trundling around the back. You could probably push a wheelbarrow quicker, but they were trundling around the back. We haven't got teams that super badly suck this year. And they can all kind of throw in little weird results here and there. And I know we're only 3 races in, but it does feel like the back markers have kind of caught up a bit. And now it's a bit more interesting, I think.
I agree. And I think we saw that, especially the first race of the year, where it was like Q3, it was separated by 1 second from P1 to P20. Yeah. And I was like, what is this, IndyCar? I haven't seen this spread in years. Like, I was so excited by that. And we're seeing these narrow margins a lot now. And I think that while the regulations were to improve dirty air and passing, part of them was also to help level the playing field with cost cap and increase parity in the series. And I think we're starting to see the effect of that with the sliding scale arrow and the cost caps. And we're starting to see some leveling of the playing field to a degree. I still think that there is a clear far and away, like you're saying, top set of the field. But once you get beyond that, it's really, really packed up and really stacked up in something I haven't seen in F1 in kind of a while.
Now, a very serious question.
Uh-oh.
It's in 2 parts. One, when Pierre won in Monza and his radio messages came through about how excited he was and for the team, did you get emotional like me? Because I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And 2 is, did you see the video of him and Esteban making burgers in Australia with Jack Doohan doing the referee or the judging for their burgers that they made? Because if you haven't seen that, you must. I'll put a link to it in the show notes.
I was describing it as best a wreck for Monza. That was crazy. I was like, inconsolable is probably a good word.
Were the last laps tight when Carlos is chasing him down? And
I was like, yes, I was like, he's gonna catch him. I can't believe that like he's gonna like lose this. I did not have faith. Okay, I was like, I hope that he can hold him off because he's a good driver. He's crushing it. Like, please pull this out. And then like the win, I was super emotional. And then the burger video, I was horrified. The man who I'm pretty sure he has said that he can't cook, and he turned around and made Esteban look like a master chef.
Oh, except for the onion tomato roll on Esteban's side.
I was horrified to learn Esteban only cooks eggs in the microwave.
What was that?
Like that. Yes.
And then my only challenge for Pierre is he put the cheese on the burger. As an American who barbecues, we know you don't put the cheese on the burger till the end. He put it on like in the beginning. Like, you can't flip it now. They're going to have a raw section of burger at the top.
Hey, I give him kudos for saying this is medium rare because I'm a medium rare burger girl.
Yeah, medium rare. The bottom's well done. The top is raw, but otherwise.
I've been touting, I want them to do a grill the grid in Texas, but it's physically the grid grilling.
Yes. Well, we lost Daniel. I mean, can we get a replacement and get Daniel on the grid? Because I bet he'd be the best. Is just my guess for some reason. I don't know why I even think.
But here's the thing: after seeing that video, I don't know if I want to even entertain a grill competition with the grid.
We make the drivers eat their own sandwiches or their own meals, and then whomever gets sick, like Max, had the flu, won't be. Anyway, so it's great to know you watched that too.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Right, I'm going to try to get this back under control now, Brian. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's good. I was going to segue towards, we need to do the 100 seconds of DRS soon, but before we get there, DRS, now, do you think DRS has still got a place in F1, and if so, stay as it is, or do you like some of the ideas that have been touted around that I think me and Brian are on board with, which is maybe they get like a certain amount of DRS seconds for a race or number of times they could deploy it rather than this kind of arbitrary zoning type
Not
thing.
A push to pass exactly the same as push to pass, but similar idea, right?
So I think for now, and I think personally, unless the series goes spec, it's gonna have a place in the series. I like it. I think it's an effective tool. I think it can drive some passes, but is helping the racing product. So I think without it, we wouldn't see any of the overtakes that we see sometimes. I think some of the Australian overtakes wouldn't have happened without DRS. I think that they came in handy for that. Um, I love some of the ideas that are being thrown around from a strategy standpoint, and that's something that I love with IndyCar is push to pass. You only get 150 seconds per race, and it is a ginormous strategy piece. And so I actually love the how do I use it? When do I use it? How much do I use it? Do I just press the button and hold it and just keep mashing the button and keep just taking my push to pass? And then I don't have any left at the end. Do I conserve my push to pass for the end and run a strategy that gets me up there fighting? So then I have all this push to pass left where my competition might not. I actually love the idea of that becoming a strategy component rather than just kind of a cat and mouse component. I think we were seeing some of the DRS chicken that was happening that the FIA kind of tried to deal with in that sense. And I think that doing something with like the limited amounts, which is like my favorite solution to the problem, would probably actually curb that a lot. You would get push to pass chicken, but it would really be like I'm hurting myself by fighting you by using my push to pass so you can't catch me. And it would become another strategy piece.
I agree. I think it would help. Like at the moment, it feels a little bit too overpowered. Certain tracks get it right, and the DRS can help get you right up alongside somebody into the braking zone, which is kind of like the chef's kiss of DRS, right? But some of them are just ridiculous, and it's just like kind of getting whatever color shell it is on Mario Kart and just kind of storming. It's the star, I think, actually, the invincible star, right? Just cruising straight past them, and it's just too easy. If the car in front was able to, if you were able to activate the DRS, like you say, for a certain amount of time per race, and you see that car flying up behind you, like, do I just give in and let him go, or do I use my DRS now to counter it and stay ahead? I think you're right, and I think it doesn't. Some people are worried it would be a gimmick, and I don't see it as a gimmick. I'm agreeing with you. I see it as strategy. I see it as a way of adding. At the moment, it's just a little bit too arbitrary. Where we pick that zone. Why is that zone a DRS zone? Because it is.
And just sure.
It's
I like how it looks.
I mean, it is already a gimmick. It's okay to add something.
Gimmick the gimmick.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've reduced the gimmick factor by going on top of it. But in my mind, I agree with what you said, the strategy aspects. And I like tires. But Rob thinks I like literally the rubber tires, the compound. I like the strategy that comes from the tires. I love that. Yeah. I love the way people are going to figure out their pit stops and then when they're going to do their pits and what tires are going to and from. I miss greatly, as listeners know, having quality decisions and at the end of Q2 going into Q3, that's your tire. I love that. I miss that so much. So to your point, the strategy that would be involved and raising the game of that, I think it would help the viewers. It would help the solid teams, and it'd probably hurt Ferrari. Sorry, Rob.
Anything you do will always hurt Ferrari because Ferrari just all they want to do is hurt. Yeah. Thinking of that too, it would also remedy DRS trains because at what point do I stop not wanting to be passed? Do I just bail out at that point? All right, fine. You know what I want? I want that for later in the race. So I think that it's always an interesting thing, and that's always been my stance is make it like push to pass an IndyCar, but it's limited the amount of presses or intervals that you get, and I think it would probably solve a lot of the issues the gimmick has. We're seeing the DRS chicken remedied, but I think DRS trains are now the big problem and the struggle because once you get caught in the train, you can't really break the train. It's kind of hard too. So in that, I hate races that just wind up as DRS trains. It is so boring.
Wasn't it Monaco last year when it dried out? Everyone's behind Fernando for like half the race.
I don't think that's not DRS. That's just Monaco.
True. That's true. It's a combo of both. It was Fernando.
Yeah, I enjoyed the 9 overtakes Pierre did at Monaco.
It was so great in the beginning when it was wet and he was going nuts. That and then when Joe came around the corner and went completely sideways and saved it.
Yes. That race was crazy. That was a crazy Monaco for Monaco standards.
But talking of DRS,
all right,
here we go.
Yes, Molly. It is now time for you to take on the legendary 100 Seconds of DRS and see if you can beat Dr. Obbs. Now, I say that's got a little small asterisk in the small print reads, we don't score it. So this is all completely basically subjective. So if we'll just say that you did better than Dr. Obbs and you're the winner, if that's okay.
Okay, deal. Because I'm gonna throw that in his face.
You should.
Right. Okay. So Brian is going to be asking the questions. I am going to be
All right.
rocking the timer.
All right.
So I guess it's just a matter of saying, Brian, are you ready to ask the questions?
I am.
Molly, are you ready to answer them?
Sure.
Never has a more affirmative sure been given. Right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, begin.
Cable, satellite, or streaming?
Streaming.
Best F1 driver on the grid today?
Lewis Hamilton.
What's your favorite F1 track of all time?
Oh God. Suzuka.
Oh, excellent. What's your favorite racing movie of all time?
Cars or Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh, excellent choices. What's the most commonly visited website?
On my computer.
Yeah.
Twitter.
All right. What's your favorite TV show?
I don't know if I have one.
Okay. What's your favorite livery on a today's version 2023 car?
The Ferrari. Or no, the black Mercedes.
Okay. Have you broken more or less than 5 bones in your body?
More.
Oh, wow. If you could add a James Bond type gadget to an F1 car, what would it be?
It's got to be the car guns. Just take out your opponent. Shoot their tires out. It's fine.
That is fantastic. New Year's Eve, big deal or nothing burger?
Nothing burger.
Sleep in or up early?
Up early.
Okay, fill in the blank.
Begrudgingly.
Fill in the blank. F1 in America is
A great time. We should do it more.
best F1 driver of all time.
Senna.
Excellent choice. Best thing to do on a rainy day.
Cuddle my cat and read a book.
So we asked you about DRS, but we didn't ask tires. Interesting or not?
Interesting. They're
And
voodoo.
that's it.
Nobody knows how they work.
This is a fantastic run. That is by far, I think, one of the best we've ever had. Right, Rob?
Oh, 100%. And it ground Dr. Obbs into the dust. So.
Yes.
Yay! My work here is done.
Yeah, it's people come on and they're kind of like, oh yeah, I just want to beat so and so. Like, well, you feel free. I mean, there really is no scoring, but yeah, you won.
Thank you. I feel terrible that I blanked on Interlagos. That's like probably my other favorite track. I was like, I said Suzuka and was like, Interlagos.
Well, you know what's
Suzuka's
funny?
a good one though.
Suzuka is a great one,
Yeah.
especially when it's not raining. But the Interlagos, Rob and I got in this debate last year. I had it as like in my 3rd or 4th spot. And then the race last year was so fantastic, all sections of the weekend. And the year prior was interesting that I've kind of had to have a rethink. And believe it or not, the guy with the funny accent from Connecticut is kind of rubbing off on my track preferences. And I like Interlagos a lot more than I used to because of Rob. So I'm with you, Molly. Not Rob.
I used to like it even more when it was at the end as well, when it used to settle the championship. It was great when it was the final race. But yeah, I think, Spa... Spa, Interlagos, and Silverstone are kind of like the holy trinity. But I did like Suzuka. Although I think I liked Suzuka as a kid just because as a kid it really interested me because it had the bridge and it had the figure of 8. I was like, ooh, they go under the track.
Well, it was also in every video game. Every video game had at least for me,
too.
had a Suzuka, and I played it everywhere.
True.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Well, thank
Molly.
you so much. Oh, I think we're both going to say the same thing at the same time there, Brian.
You go, Rob.
We'll both thank you for coming on. Actually, one thing we didn't hit, which I had seen before, and when we knew you were coming on, I was just doing a little bit of research to make sure that I had a suitable apology. But you were a contributor to the F1 Beginner's Guide.
I was.
The all-female cast, that was pretty cool. How did that come about?
I got connected with Tony through TikTok, actually. So like I said, I do most of my content over on TikTok, and she connected with me through the content that I was making there, which was all of my short form video content, and reached out and was like, hey, you're an engineer. Do you want to come do the tech side of the guide? And I said, absolutely. And the rest is history. And I was part of an incredible all team of women who got to put that guide out for the 4th edition.
It's awesome. It's awesome. If you haven't checked it out, it's f1beginnersguide.com and go check it out because it's really cool. It's a very clean website as well. It's really nice, really well done. It's like not one of these clunky ones where you kind of like click a million different places. It's good content, very clean. Go check it out.
Was
Yes,
that a
very
shot
user
at
friendly.
Was that a shot at my web design on dirtysideofthetrack.com?
Hey,
I think
I
that
didn't
was.
say
Shots
anything.
fired.
I
I'm
didn't say
gonna
anything,
duck
Brian.
for cover.
I know,
Not
seriously,
between y'all
right?
on the Zoom, but I'm
boy, oh
gonna
boy.
duck for cover on that one.
And if you're not following Molly on Twitter and TikTok, you should. The Twitter handle at MollyM_O. She's obviously part of the Tech Heads podcast and a variety of other things. Check her bio from there. Amazing. Molly, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you guys for having me. It was an absolute blast.
So I'm very happy that we had that conversation because it was great fun. B, I'm also very happy that my apology accepted. You know, it was heartfelt, and although she has threatened now to not let it lie on social media, so we'll have to see how that one goes down.
Well, I think we heard me encouraging her, make some hay with that.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Brian. That was really big of you. Yeah.
So it was amazing. We hung up the Zoom recording and then continued chatting for a bit, and I laughed the entire time. So Molly, thank you again. I hope you listen to this while you're enjoying your time at the MotoGP event. And we did 100 seconds with Molly, as you just heard, but we were really fortunate to have another 100 seconds with a friend of mine, former colleague of mine, Darron. I didn't even know Darron liked F1, which you'll hear about in a minute. So let's check out 100 seconds of DRS with Darron. We are super excited to have Darron on the 100 seconds of DRS. And I got to say this, Darron and I worked together years ago, and I had no idea you were going to become this huge F1 fan that you are now. And it's amazing to have you here kind of having this conversation. So thank you for joining us, Darron.
Well, thank you both for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So, let's talk how you got into F1. You know, at what point did you say to yourself, boy, I'd really like to watch some races?
So it goes back a little bit. I've been a car fanatic my whole life and a motorsports fan, and mainly when I was younger, really more drag racing. I'm a big drag racing fan, and never really got into NASCAR that much. And then IndyCar I liked some, and then my younger son has watched F1 for a number of years and was mentioning this guy Sebastian Vettel, and I had no idea who that was, and so he had a lot of knowledge and was watching that when he was in middle school. And but so it's kind of been in the background a little bit. And then, like many fans, the Drive to Survive on Netflix series came out season 1. And I don't remember how I got turned on to that, but that hooked me. And I'm a big underdog fan, and I really like how I knew really nothing about the sport at all. They started with the lower teams, right? And if they started with Mercedes, I think it might have not done the whole series justice, right? But I love the underdog story, and so I love walking through the Haas and the Williams and that whole story of them trying to compete and the whole money, budgetary things, and that just really hooked me. And then ever since then, I've just really loved it and been really involved in it.
That's cool. That's so cool. So have you got then a particular favorite in the underdog world? Is the one that you still kind of root for at the moment, or have you moved to starting to follow the ones at the front of the pack?
Well, yes, I think I create a fantasy league for my 2 sons and my 2 son-in-laws. And so one of the requirements in there is you have to follow one of the underdog teams, right? So that was one of the stipulations. So I think, Rob, I like Haas. Obviously, they're from the American team. Williams is intriguing to me too because of the tenacity of, as I understand it, of the founder back in the day of being this mechanical genius, engineering genius, and really against the odds, right? Competing with bigger teams. Back to that underdog story. So I like Williams quite a lot, and I like Haas quite a lot.
That's tremendous. I also appreciate Williams. Right now, I don't know anyone who could cheer against Williams.
You're right. Yeah.
I don't know how. There's nothing to not like there. You got an American in Sargent who's driven well. Albon is an amazing guy, an amazing driver, and a great story. And like you said, it's a great team in the history. So, question for you: as you look now at 2023 at the season, are you seeing anybody who can catch Red Bull? Any team do you think has a chance? Because Rob and I, this is an ongoing debate for us right now.
Well, that's a very good question. For Rob, I brought my red Ferrari hat here, so
Yes.
I have to. I self-admitted Ferrari lover. So However, I don't think it's the Ferraris that are going to catch them. I don't. Mercedes with the redesign of the car, that's going to take probably a while to figure that out, I would guess, right? To get that dialed in.
Yep.
I guess the short answer is no, I don't. I don't see how anyone's going to catch them this season. Which, by the way, yeah, I think it's bad for the sport. The dynasties are always great, I believe, when it's your person owning the dynasty, right, or your team, right? So if the Chicago Bears, Brian would love a dynasty by the Chicago Bears. None of us would, but else would. But when it's, I don't think that's great for the sport long term. When that they're so far out in front that then when you watch the races, it's very interesting. They're not even showing the leaders of the race for a majority of the race. They're showing this sort of inner down in the race where people are competing for positions. And so I worry about that just from a fan competitive perspective. I don't think that's good for the sport. I think it's great for Red Bull, and it's great for Red Bull fans. But it's certainly they've earned that. But from a competitiveness, I don't think it's great for the sport.
They're going to need to give Oracle a reimbursement for some of the sponsorship money because they're getting less TV time. They're so good.
They have less impressions than they thought they were going to get. Yes, that's correct.
Totally.
Yeah, well, that was one of the conspiracy theories doing the rounds last race, when they said that Max didn't qualify high up the grid on purpose because it would meant that they would get more TV time. They were sure he'd still make it to the front, but get some more TV time for the sponsors.
Max reminds me of Tiger Woods a little bit when Tiger Woods was in his prime. Like, you knew when he was starting 15th, he might not get to one, but you have a good feeling he's getting to the podium, though, right? I mean, I think it goes to his skill set. The car is. You guys have had a debate about this, and I don't know where I land on the car and the driver, right? So, but. I did certainly have confidence that he's going to finish in the top 3 or 4 for sure from 15th. And I think he could finish top 3, 4, or 5 from 20th, I think, right?
I think so too.
I think he could start in the back every time and make it play there.
I think the only time I would say that wouldn't be true would be Monaco, but I got to be honest, Max would probably find a way to somehow do it in Monaco as well. But
exactly right, yes.
So Darron, with the growth of fandom, yours of F1 and in America as a whole, have you seen others kind of catching on to F1 as well?
Yeah, interesting story. A young woman just started last week in the office with us, and she stopped me in the hallway and said, "Hey, I hear you're an F1 fan." Now, she's only been there for a few months, and I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "My husband and I love F1," and we had a 45-minute impromptu conversation around the teams, and it was amazing. And so she and her husband are really into it. I think they were watching Drive to Survive. They hadn't actually watched it but they somehow got connected. But it was a fantastic conversation, and probably a connection that talking to her that I wouldn't otherwise have had. So it's very interesting how people build these connections around other things.
I hope the end of that conversation involves something along the lines of, "Hey, there's this podcast you guys should check out."
Well, I think I did tell her that, Rob, but if not, I will remind her that this week. I'll tell her to listen to me on the podcast. Yeah, that's great.
We love it. Yeah. It is, as I've said a couple times, when I was a fan, before Drive to Survive, it was like a secret handshake club. And when I'd meet a fellow F1 fan in America, whether it was 2000s or 2010s, or even when I started playing the F1 video game, which got me into it a million years ago, it was always like the greatest thing. And there's still something to that. It's more popular now. It's obviously there are a lot of fans going. The races in America are crazy expensive now, but when you still have that connection, like you said, a 45-minute impromptu conversation, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. When I run into an F1 fan, I feel like I want to give him a hug and just sit and talk F1 for a while. So there's still something to that.
Yes, I had the same reaction, Brian, when I heard through fellow folks that we worked with previously that you were doing this. I was blown away by that. I didn't connect you with this, right? And so I instantly went home and downloaded your app and started listening to your podcast and was hooked right away. And you guys entertained me while I walked through my neighborhood for my exercise. So thank you for that. Yeah.
Happy to do it. I'm happy to do it. But speaking of entertaining,
The real reason you're here right now, Darron, it's not for us to catch up. It's not to talk about the growth of F1. It's to do the 100 seconds of DRS. Are you ready for what has to be the podcast world's fastest and most interesting quiz show?
I am ready. Yes, I'm ready.
All right. So the way this will work this week is Rob will ask the questions. I'll do the timing, and you'll give the answers. So Darron said he's ready. Rob, are you ready?
I am indeed.
All right. We will begin in 3, 2, 1, go.
Favorite F1 driver on the grid currently?
Currently, Charles Leclerc.
What's your favorite restaurant?
Favorite restaurant, Perry's Steakhouse.
Favorite F1 track?
Silverstone.
Oh, good man. Is it pronounced GIF or GIF?
Oh, I don't know, actually. I'm going to say GIF.
If you said GIF, then Brian's happy. Ford or Ferrari?
Ferrari.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No.
What's your favorite livery of all time on a Formula One car?
Well, I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge Ferrari fan, so the red, their favorite color is red, so it's definitely one of the Ferrari liveries, yes.
Excellent. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
If you could add a James Bond-style gadget to an F1 car, what would it be?
Probably that it would fly.
Oh, nice. We haven't had that one before.
Yeah, that's a good
favorite non-motorsport sport?
Golf.
Sleep in or get up early?
Sleep in.
DRS, good or bad?
Good.
If you could add a new venue to Formula One, where would it be?
Wow. I would say perhaps New York City.
Do you have any lucky superstitions?
No, I don't.
Wet or dry race?
I enjoy the wet race. I think it confuses things, yeah.
Same here. Would you rather be chased by one horse-sized duck or 10 duck-sized horses?
One horse. 10 duck-sized horses.
What would you
We've
give?
reached. That was the.
Well, that was the most important question, so I'm glad we got that one in.
So that was amazing, Darron. One of our mutual friends, and may not be the person who told you about the pod initially, but I know you've talked about it, is David.
Yeah.
And David, I got to say, I think Darron beat you.
Well, I only came on here to beat David, so I'm happy now. The rest of my day is great. Yeah.
Mission accomplished. That was great. Darron, thanks so much for doing that.
Thank you.
And great answers. I liked your Ferrari hat. When we stop recording, I may run upstairs and grab mine and put it on as well, so the three of us can all be doing the same thing. But
that's great. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. Thanks so much. And if anyone else would want to be on the 100 Seconds of DRS and challenge Darron's marks, let us know at F1 Dirty Side on Twitter. Thanks again, Darron.
Yeah, thanks, Darren.
Thank you.
I'm a little bit disappointed that another one of your friends is actually a really good guy. So,
are you learning anything about me yet? You're the degenerate one of the
it's
group.
to counter your personality. You have to surround yourself with really good people, which then I can put myself into that category.
Geez.
So, yeah, actually, maybe I can run with that. Yeah, there's a pattern here that Brian needs to try to improve himself as a person by surrounding himself with fantastic people. Yeah, I can run with that. And Darron was fantastic.
Right, definitely.
Loved his. I love anybody that we talk to like this to kind of hear how they got into it. Everyone, I don't even think we've heard the same origin story twice from anybody we've spoken to, whether they're guests that have come on as in guest slots or listeners that have come on for the DRS slot. It's just it's one of my favorite parts about doing this is hearing about how other people got into this.
And the weird thing is, so with Darron, we hung up, and again, we were chatting afterwards, which is like the fun part. People come on the 100 seconds, just hang out. It's, you 7-8 minutes on the pod, but, we can just chill and talk about stuff off the recording. We were sharing merch pictures of things, and it spitballed. And then next week's DRS guest, Walter, same thing. And then Lizzie, the week after that, same thing. So we are all just fans of F1, sharing our mutual passion. So if you want to join us, please do at F1 Dirty Side on Twitter. Let us know a DM or a tweet, or dirtysideofthetrack@gmail.com. Send us a note if you'd like to join the 100 Seconds of DRS effort, fan club, funness, whatever the heck it is. I don't know.
Funness.
Speaking American.
Yeah, true. Okay, so that's that really for this week. Next week, I have no clue what's going on. You're being left in complete control of this, Brian. I'm just going to rock back in off vacation and turn the laptop on and record something with you on Sunday, and I really have no clue what it's going to be. So
I actually know. Do you want the preview of it?
Ooh, you've actually got it sorted.
No clue, but it'll be something along the lines of talking about a garage.
Well, you know, I will obviously be thinking about you constantly and thinking about good F1
Please
content while I lie on a
Please
beach.
do.
Yeah, enjoy your week off. Oh no, you're not having a week off, are you?
That was the meanest thing you've ever said to me. I'm going to be in meetings.
Enjoy your week,
Yeah.
and everyone tune in next week to find out what we do talk about. And until then, keep it on the dirty side.